All right. So, the people that do the zero time pediment shit, okay? So, in ways, over time, over years in their life, they'll start, some of them won't output as this, but some do, okay? It's kind of like they tend to hate women so much by the end, and then a lot of times they do so much pedophilia that it stops being a sexual fetish. And then a satanic S&M club essentially rapes them while stimulating them in the butthole and in the wiener, and then that gets them infatuated with rape, gay rape kind of sex, basically. And that's called fuckhuckering. That the S&Ms do that to those people that do that. So what happens when they start this? Like when they get schizoed out, they get fuckhuckered, which is where they essentially can make them re-stimulated sexually, but by anal sex with dudes. Okay. So essentially, what they start doing is they start doing what's called like switchy bitch and witch, where they in a satanic S&M, the witches are like supposed to do all the women stuff, and then they start doing all the women stuff, and then it'll be like a forced girlfriend, and then they're forced to like do like car mechanic stuff and shit like that, okay? And so that's where they like to sinisterly punish the witch by doing that type of shit, okay? And so then they more womans. And essentially what that kind of means is like, I've seen people that fit this psychological profile that they were like people that are in misogyny clubs that are like massive misogynists, that then they attempt to out feminists and shit. By and they were doing articles. You see, I won't write articles because, you know, in ways those women specifically, I would refer to them as my witches. Those are my peeps. And so the whole, because they attempt to battle misogyny, and that has turned these people turned into sociopaths nowadays. They do. And so they aren't feminists, but they attempt to figure out how to do all the theoretics of that stuff. They really do. And then they're always doing misogyny. Always. So they also, when they usually, it's like, it's probably the Green River Killer probably would have filled in this theoretical block. They start like hate killing women sometimes. It's like where they don't like women whatsoever. And that's pretty much where they just hate women in all fucking ways. So, the whole idea is that I'm a wizard. I love women in all ways. I just call them witches, and I hate male pedophile witches the most. And then sometimes this is like where they talk about the Cayman pedo bang psycho being a secret psycho tranny or something like that. That's this, and that this person kind of represents what that psychological output is. And you see how he does sewing, does all the women stuff. You see, that's like where they're, when they do Satanism, they get twisted. And then he kidnaps a woman. He's all skinny and like theoretically like skinny, you know, like pretty women are always considered skinny or something. Then he finds big women, and that's where he's like, the theoretical ways that they think are diametrics like that, and that has a lot to do with these theoretical kind of people to Satanism, and that the zero time pedo mind shit is Satanism, and that essentially, that's where they kind of get kicked out for being psychos out of satanic cult S&Ms. And then they start to morph because they'll still be doing that stuff. And then essentially the satanic S&M, basically the satanic S&M still has to theoretically do animal control, but they can't, like I say, they're psychos. So they can't necessarily turn them in. They have to allow them to do their Satanism or something. And that this is like literally where one of the psychological outputs of doing that stuff is where over time they start to get weird, secrety obsessions like this. They do. And then they start to psychologically output as people that kind of fall into this realm. And you see, this stuff, they're not doing this stuff in the feminist man way. See, switchy bitch and witch means, that's where in the feminist man way, you witch is just a princess and doesn't do any women stuff. See, the feminist women, they don't really care. They don't mind a man like doing all the man stuff and the women stuff because they just don't like doing anything that's labeled women stuff. So that's what you do in feminist man. You do all the witch's food. You make the food for the witch, and you do all the dishes, and you clean the shitter, and you do basically you just be their bitch. So that's what feminist man is. So then in this one, more women than women. That is what feminists want, anyways. So the more women stuff that you do, the more better man you are. So that's what you do in feminist women's, as feminist women's wieners. And then essentially in feminist man, you essentially you do the diametric to this, where you be really protective of the witch or woman or whatever. And then in this one is like where they don't believe. I mean, they have like my ex-wife is a real hardcore feminist. Okay, she is. And so the reality is that any man that's afraid to just like put on a dress and make a humorous like picture. See, the ones that aren't afraid, they're witches. Feminist witches, they would view that as manly. That's what they think manly is. Okay? So that is where there's essentially a diametric that does this in the feminist world. And that's what they would call a perfect man. But see, you people do this stuff where they do this misogynist club and they destroy women that are usually like lesser educated or something at feminism. They just like destroy them with the theoretics of women's and gender studies stuff. And they do it out of pure fun and just psychoness. And then they like to be the misogynists that are better at feminist theoretics and shit like that. Okay, so that's the difference. That's the people I'm talking about. You people fall into this. And then I do feminist man. Feminist man just does everything the princess wants. Feminist man just likes to do women's stuff. And feminist man super protective of women's. And feminist man knows that to optimize yourself in the 21st century as ultimate male feminist wiener, that you can't be afraid. Like I see in these, if you type in like feminist couple, straight feminist couple, you'll see that there's, facetious, like, liberal dudes that wear a dress with their women. That kind of stuff. See, that's what I was doing. Facetious feminist stuff. These people, they do this stuff in secret. They're crazy. if you were to show anything like that about one of these people that have this in secret, they would snap psychologically, right? That's the difference. See, I I put on one of women's dresses and I put a picture on Facebook. That that means nothing. That's what feminist dudes have to do now. It's kind of what it is. Because if you want to optimize with the feminist vagina crowd, that's the kind of stuff that they'll giggle, they'll giggle and shit. And then you'll be, see, man fucks witch. Whatever makes a witch's vagina more on your wiener is what you're supposed to do. And that's the theoretics in the feminist world. See, you people fuck kids and are weird as fuck. You see, you're supposed to do whatever optimizes your wiener, skewer, and the witch in feminist world. And so, oh, I would have made. Just remember, I would have gotten lots of feminist points just for doing that. Honestly. Because they're witches. They think backwards. They think backwards. Because they speak backwards, okay? They speak, that's like their little women language. They speak backwards to each other. So and that's what that was about. I mean, it was a joke. It's just a joke. People shouldn't be making decisions in any ways based on anything like that. But that there's a real problem with most of those people that do that zero-time pedo munch shit. They turn into this. This is one of the theoretical kind of outputs of that. That is something to actually be like afraid of. You people, you may not look like the guy in there, but essentially most of them would probably be secretly attracted to the guy in there for his psychoness, his hatred of women, his weird womany stuff, all that stuff. Basically,